Hello again. Not to bring back high school, but FOMO is ruining your life. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about all the ways in which FOMO is messing with your head and what we can do about it. I have, I think, been hit by a wave of FOMO-induced feelings recently. And FOMO, I guess there's obviously a multitude of layers to FOMO. There's FOMO in the sense of, you look on Instagram and you see all these people doing things that you wish you were already doing or that you want to do in the future, whatever. Then there's FOMO that's just kind of a more conceptual, not people-related FOMO that targets just your experience of life. And I think that's the one that's been the most powerful in terms of hitting me recently. Just this feeling of dissatisfaction with the life that you have right now, and this pull, but it can be a positive pull, and I guess FOMO makes it a negative pull, and this pull for something else, and that something else is very abstract, very, you don't even know if you'd be happier with it, but it's, I guess it's insights in terms of what you wish you had more of, or yeah, just FOMO, fear of missing out on something else. And I guess I split it up into 3 categories: creative FOMO, social FOMO, and life FOMO. Because ultimately I think all 3 kind of coexist at the same time. And I don't think FOMO is the kind of thing that you necessarily, fight once and then it goes away. Hence the bringing back high school. I do think FOMO is mostly this high school, middle school word that we throw around of your friends go out to a party and you're I don't know, you feel left out or whatever. And I think FOMO is so much bigger than that. And the recent discourse around JOMO, joy of missing out, and how different brands have been trying to play with it. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's Uber Eats that did a JOMO, joy of missing out ad. I don't know if we're going to be able to find it. Well, regardless, it's about missing the party. And kind of that you should skip parties and order Uber Eats instead. So that's just a funny little side note. But I think the conclusion in terms of all things FOMO is just that it's all mostly in your head. All your suffering, all your dissatisfaction is in your head. Because again, there's a difference between sitting within your circumstances and feeling you should or could be doing something else that's more fun, that's more what you want to be doing, versus just realizing that and then doing it. And I think what we're targeting here is this feeling, the negative feeling that comes from feeling like you're not where you want to be. Because ultimately, the more time you spend in that feeling, the less time you actually spend getting to do the things that you want to be doing. So great, if you, you realize that you're missing out on a summer by the beach or whatever, spend less time, in that FOMO feeling and more time trying to get to a reality where you are satisfied with it. Not necessarily with not going to the beach, but, either that's changing, moving countries or moving cities or whatever, or finding what you actually like in going to the beach. Is it the relaxation moment? Is it just the structure of life where you have more time to yourself? What is it that you actually want? And then instead of feeling the negative feelings, I guess looking for positive experiences. I don't know. Again, I'm not really sure. Let's see what my conclusion is when we get to it. I wrote something down, but that's kind of jumping ahead. I also have ran into a bit of an issue with my little arena channel because I added so many things that I ran out of blocks. So for now, we're just going to recycle old things, but I feel like that could also be fun to sort of pull things and, interpret different references in different ways. Oh, I forgot about this. I wrote this little poem. This is just the title. Cool. Let's get into it. Creative FOMO. I feel like as creatives, this is the most interesting one. The rest kind of is less relevant or less poignant. No one's doing cooler projects than you. That's the number one thing that I think we as creatives just need to accept. And obviously it's a bit of a tricky one because obviously people are doing cooler projects than you, and they will always be doing cooler projects than you. And even if you do the coolest project you can think of right now, you will still then look online or look for inspiration or whatever and find people doing cooler things than you. And by cooler things than you, I just mean things that you want to be doing next. And you, because you will always want to be doing cooler and cooler things next, this will always happen. So it will always feel like that. However, accepting the fact that no one's doing cooler projects than you cuts off the part of your brain that's busy monitoring what's happening, which again can be good. You can do a competitive bench, you can look for inspiration, whatever. But the part of your brain that's constantly monitoring and seeking validation through, you know, like, I don't know, seeing an artist and not liking their songs, and then that somehow makes you feel better, versus, you know, seeing someone do really cool things and that somehow makes you feel worse. And that is a waste of everyone's time. And it's also a way of, like, you're just self-sabotaging basically, because that part of your brain that's monitoring, that's waiting for the next cool thing to come out for you to feel like whatever you are spending time doing is not worth it. It's just self-sabotage that's waiting to happen. So it's like right now you don't have a lever, you don't have like something cooler that you can see, so you're fine, but let's, you know, be on the lookout for something cooler so that the moment you find it, you can give up the thing you're doing. Because obviously, well, what are you doing? Like if you're making a single when someone just dropped an album, like what? Just quit, you know? And that part of your brain doesn't get involved. Like that's just the number one rule. Like that part of the brain that's doing that type of thinking is not useful. And so the goal here is just to get to the point where you genuinely don't feel like anyone is doing cooler things than you, because you have access to all of those things. Like if you want to be doing the coolest thing you can think of, you can do it. And it's obviously a vicious cycle of choosing the easiest thing to do instead of the coolest thing to do. Coolest, we mean by like our little artist brains, what they think is cool, not necessarily coolest in terms of like external validation. But the point is, when you end up picking the easiest project versus the project you're most passionate or interested in, then obviously it's easier, having picked the easiest project, to then feel frustrated or disappointed or whatever when other people are actually diving all in and doing the things that they find really cool. So that's another thing. It's like, obviously, to be able to accept or to get to the point where you genuinely believe that no one's doing anything cooler than you creatively, not necessarily that you're doing the coolest thing, but just that you're satisfied with what you're doing. To get to that point, you really just have to also readjust your life so that you're doing the things that you actually want to be doing, instead of rejecting yourself and rejecting your inner artist, to then obviously feel frustrated when other people don't reject theirs. And so I guess the point here is just to be able to get to that point. There's a list of things that you need to do or to accept behind that. And one of those is just like when you're picking among a list, let's say, of creative projects that you're, I don't know, creative ideas that you got or whatever, pick the one that excites you the most, even though it might not be the easiest thing to do. Because the easiest thing to do is actually the one you're less likely to finish, just because it doesn't excite you. So even though on paper it might be the thing that's the most somehow productive, you will end up having a worse experience doing the easiest thing than you will having chosen the hardest but most exciting for you personally idea. And again, this is just one example. You obviously do have to like readjust yourself and the way that you decision make in your life to be able to actually get to the point where you genuinely don't feel like there is anything to have FOMO about creatively. And again, that's a weird first point, obviously, because if we're talking about creative FOMO, how's the first point don't have creative FOMO? But that's kind of the whole point, because if you're spending time feeling the fear of missing out, you're not present, and anything that involves any kind of enjoyment of life, enjoyment of your creativity, enjoyment of your social surroundings comes down to being present, which we'll get to that. Let's get to the second point. to get to your dream creative job, make your dream creative job first. This is like the basic thing. It's like, you know, it's like if you want to be doing, everyone wants to get to a point where they, you know, have the job of their dreams, or they're spending time doing the thing that they want to be doing. And the problem with that is that a lot of us don't actually know yet what that is for sure. We might have ideas, we might even have, you know, convictions, but a lot of the times we actually don't. And this is a lesson that I've had to like learn somewhat recently, or over the past few years, because I would, you know, get this like idea of an answer, think, you know, like I would be happiest creatively directing campaigns for artists or whatever. And then I would test that idea. I would get hired by a place that does that. And then I would actually realize that for this, that, and that reason, it actually wasn't my dream job, and it's not what I want to do. And, you know, and the issue is that you're very unlikely to actually be able to pick a job that you like, that's your dream job. And it's more of like a co-creation process, wherein you do the creative work that you want to be doing. As you do that, you also find the creative work that you want to be doing, because obviously the first passion project you pick is not going to be the project that, you know, inspires you the most, or that is that ideal job. But so as you work for yourself, you iterate. Anyways, you get to the point where it's like trial and error, until you get to a point where you're doing creative work that you actually want to be doing, and also that you wouldn't mind doing for other people or with other people. And I think the issue with trying to get the job by, you know, like looking for a job, or, you know, pitching yourself to brands or to companies, is that they probably don't have the job that you're looking for. Like the job that you haven't even found yet, if you haven't done that creative work, doesn't even exist yet. Like no one is doing your dream job. And again, this is like a half truth, because there probably is someone who's doing your creative job, but for you to be able to find that dream job conceptually in your head, and for that job to be able to find you, what you need to do is just do your own projects. Because the issue is you won't be able to find that job in your head just by thinking about it. It only comes from doing. And also those jobs that we're talking about are such individually constructed jobs that they aren't given to like a first applicant or whatever, you know? And I think especially when you're young, doing that process of iteration and finding, like the process of looking, is so important, so much more so than looking for a job. And obviously for financial reasons, you will need to look for jobs and stuff like that, and it is still productive to look for jobs that are tangential to what you want to be doing. But just in my experience, I'm super happy that I've had those jobs, but I don't feel like right now, in this moment in my life, I don't feel like the creative dream jobs that you find through applying for them. I think you find them by doing the work, finding the work, because it's not going to be the first creative work that you do for yourself either. And then as you're looking for that, companies or, you know, collectives or whoever is looking for that job, like to hire that person, they're also looking for what it is that they need or want. So you're both looking, you're looking for what you want to do, they're looking for what they actually need, going through trial and error, and then ideally you both, you know, like meet halfway. But that halfway is such a random point that you can't just, you know, type it in on LinkedIn and find the job application that you need to submit. And this, I guess, is the process of trial and error that you'll have to go through, just because you will never... You can have a plan, and the plans are great and they're super useful, and I think they also help concretize sort of, and also map out like what you thought 2 years ago what you wanted to do. And I think the plans, even just looking back through them, is super helpful. I know planning is technically unproductive, but I actually would not advise against planning, just because then in retrospect you can find a lot of interesting things. But ultimately it's kind of like a web. Sometimes I add things to this channel on Arena, and like, I don't know why I'm adding it. It just kind of makes sense. So this one is an example of that. I don't know why, like something just spoke to me in it. I think it's mostly the design. But I guess this is the metaphor that it makes the most sense for, because again, it's like, there's no linear anything in terms of looking. So you just have to go and like, you know, explore this random corner and then go the other way and then, you know, whatever. And then that combination of things and combination of experiences that you acquire and that are great to acquire through jobs. But I think if we're talking about creative job, no one's going to give it to you. Which is also where like creative FOMO, when you're like waiting to be given your dream job, it's misleading, because even when someone does give you what you think is your dream job, you might actually end up finding that it's a job like any other, or at least just not a job for you, you know? Which is where just do the work. You want to be like, fine. It's not even do the work, because again, a lot of the times we don't actually know. Like, even if you think you know, you probably don't know in its full whatever, just because we're constantly evolving creatures. And I guess, yeah, just the point is just like do the creative work that calls you, and keep following that. Again, we're going to go back to the spiral metaphor, because I think that to me is creatively the best metaphor that exists. But you're supposed to follow this like calling wherever it calls you. And that's the only reason why you couldn't possibly have an answer, because the answer you have today is not going to be the same tomorrow when you actually go through the creative project that's calling you today. Then another project is going to call you, and then it's just, yeah, it's a web that you're building throughout your creative life. And I guess to sum all of that up, networking, I feel like before you found that dream thing that you want to, it's not even dream, like before you found that thing that you want to spend 24/7 of your life doing and thinking about, networking before that is kind of a waste of time, because it will definitely work. You will get work, like it will work. Like networking is such a safe bet. Like if you ask me right now, like how do I get a job? Go network. Easy, you know? And the problem with networking is just that exactly the thing that you want to find today, networking will allow you to find it. And then the issue with that is just that you will be stuck in a job needing to do the thing you thought you wanted to do, that you might actually not realize, that you might actually find yourself like moving past. And then because you've committed to a job that's like a longer period of time than if you had committed to a passion project. Again, jobs are very important in terms of like, you know, financial stability, especially as a young person starting out. Like 100% you need jobs, and you're better off with creative jobs a lot of the time than not. But just know that the process of finding what you want to be doing is more internal and more personal than it is in terms of working for other people. Yeah. And then I guess all of that is also comes with like, you just need to stop putting other artists on a pedestal, because it's not going to get you anywhere. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have references or people you're inspired by, because that's super useful. And there's a lot of good that comes from like shadowing artists or entrepreneurs that you like aspire to be like, or aspire, or or that have qualities that you aspire to have. You can shadow, you know, like from their routines to what they consume online to the references that they have. Like these are all super useful things. But that's as a reference, like as a peer, like as an artist that is also an artist in your sphere, or whatever, that a person that you're inspired by. Not necessarily, just don't put people on a pedestal, because then you're actually creating this non-existent gap between you and the people that you want to either work with or work like or whatever, you know? And it's just pointless, because it's just one more lever for your self-saboteur to have to discourage you from doing the work. So whether it's true or not, whether, you know, you're a better artist or not, it doesn't matter. Like these are just useless thoughts and therefore a waste of your time. So not that we solved anything with this conversation, but I think, again, having the conversation kind of like gives you actionables and like tools to maybe get to something. Social FOMO is another one. And I guess especially as creatives in collaborative fields, super closely linked to the creative point, but let's separate the two. No one's having more fun than you. At best, they're more present in theirs, but that's not something that you should be like jealous of. I mean, sure, I feel like in a way it makes more sense to be jealous of someone who's so present in their life that you're jealous of that presence and like you want to have that presence in yours. But in terms of people having more fun or having, a richer circle or whatever, like no one is having a better social experience than you. And again, not because it's not necessarily true. Like the truth of all of these things, it doesn't matter. And the part of your brain that actually wants an answer to that is that exact part of the brain that you need to take control of and control, because it's a waste of your time, and it's a self-sabotage mechanism that's trying to get you to spend more time calculating where you stand socially. So calculating your rank in terms of, the creative community, or your rank in terms of the social hierarchy, or whatever, your rank in terms of like who's living the best life, for the third point. And it's a waste of time, because even if someone does have an absolute objective ranking of that, what is the point? Let's say you're the worst artist to ever exist in history. Going back to the first point, we're kind of jumping around here. So what? Does that mean that you shouldn't do what you want to be doing? Does that mean that you, let's say if you're the worst filmmaker to exist in history, should you stop making movies? If you like making movies, why should that objective, and we're saying it's objective as let's just test a hypothesis. To what extent should the last person on that list just drop that, whatever passion that they have? Again, different people might have different answers, but to me, it's a waste of time to spend your life doing something you're good at instead of something that you actually enjoy. Because even if you're good at something, that runs out. And let me tell you this as someone who had an easy time at school, but I just wasn't passionate about school. And so all of a sudden, after a certain point, you miss a math class or two because you're so good. And then all of a sudden you miss such important things without having learned the ability to persevere and actually dig into things, because you've had such an easy time that at some point you just you get stuck behind a tiny bit, and then you never catch up, just because you never had that drive for learning and for getting ahead. And so a person who was actually worse than me, let's say at math or at whatever other subject, would have gotten ahead would have at the end of the day been much more ahead of me, and therefore in terms of the class or whatever, just because they had to learn and put an effort into it from day one. And so the skill that they have is actually perseverance and learning, which I didn't have. I just had the skill of, I guess, being good at math by default at age 6, and then never again, because I never developed it, because I never cared about developing it. And also, very honestly, I don't even feel again, I'm not that bad at math necessarily now, but I just never regretted not being crazy good at calculus, because I just didn't care. And if I had stuck through it and it was easy, sure, I would have had that skill, but even if I was good at it, I still would not care, because that's not what I'm passionate about. That's not what I care about. I really just don't care about math, especially calculus, which, again, I'm not saying maybe one day it'll come to me and I'll be super, passionate about it. Nothing's definite, but that person that struggled and that learned to push through the struggle is so much better in math today than me. And that's what matters, so it doesn't matter. The metrics don't matter. And in fact, what does the artist that's ranked the last gain from finding out that they're last in that ranking? So just don't rank. That's just, yeah. Just accept the fact that even if you're the worst person in your field. No, and this is maybe also another thing. If you feel if you're the worst at this, and that makes you, if you think that, in the reality that you're the last in the rank, if that reality makes you want to drop that thing that you're doing, maybe switch. Maybe that's a reason for you to switch subjects or jobs or whatever. Because if you're not just passionate about the thing you're doing, what are you, you're wasting your one life, you know what I'm saying? Why are you doing this? Do something else. Do something that calls you so much that you don't care if you're, by default, the first or last ranking in it. Yeah, and same thing. Like, I guess just tell yourself, what if let's say the subject at school that you hated the most, what if you were the best biologically or whatever, like just by birth, you were the best at that subject? Would you become a biologist? Like, if that's never been something that calls you, just the fact that you're number one shouldn't call you. Because if you didn't like it then, why would you like it now? Anyways, but going back to the social FOMO, same thing. Maybe, probably, people are having more fun than you. Who cares? Because the point of that sentence, or the point of that feeling, like the reason why that like concept of are other people having more fun than me comes into your mind is just because you want to be having more fun. Like, if you feel dissatisfied in your life in terms of how much fun you're having, have more fun. Like, that's just, there's no other person involved, there's no other people involved, like there's just you. And again, it's fair enough to look at other people and think, they're much more present in their lives than I am. And in that case, it's useful to go and ask them, how do they, get that presence? How do they focus, like get their tips? That's fair enough, But aside from the presence aspect, no one's having more fun than you. The other quote, I was reading the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and I don't actually know if that's how you pronounce his name. I should probably check that out. But there's a quote there that says, to be worthy of a mate, be worthy of a worthy mate, which I don't know who talks like that. It's also not his quote, it's someone else's quote. But regardless, I don't like the wording necessarily, but I just think that this logic applies to friendships. Like, if you want to be in a certain kind of social circle, be the kind of person that would have that social circle. And I think you find your friends, like your real friends, the friends that you aspire to have or whatever, by being that friend yourself. Not necessarily that friend, but just like being that person. If you want to have a creative friend group, be a person who would have a creative friend group. And again, don't do this in a performative way because you'll burn out. But if you genuinely become more closely yourself, you will end up finding people who you authentically would have around you. And you won't have what you want until you are who you want to be internally. Right. Okay, yeah, that's another thing. It goes back to the same point, but it's like you're never going to be able to get things in life that you want because, okay, the reason why you want certain things in life is probably because you want to, or you feel internally that you're a certain person, but you're not aligned with that person yet. Like, you're not fully yourself yet. And so to be able to have the things that you think that you should or want to have in your life, you need to align with your true self or whatever. Like, within you, there's a compass or like a certain like thing where you feel either further or closer to who you want to be or who you are truly or whatever, depending on how you see things. And you will only be able to have the things that you want by being closer and closer to who you actually are. Because then again, it aligns. It's like the day that you are the person that you truly are, you'll have the friends that you think that you naturally would have. Let's hurry it up because we're running out of time. And again, trying to be somewhere else or someone else is a waste of your time. And again, what is important is just like finding that inner alignment in terms of your values, in terms of where does your energy go, and just being more and more you. And then again, that mixed with being more present and the being more you put together gives you the presence to actually enjoy your life. But to be able to be present and to be able to be closer to being yourself, you need to let go of that metric, because if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people in terms of creative projects, in terms of socializing or like social friend groups or whatever, you will never be able to actually check in with yourself and see how far you or how close you are to being who you were always meant to be. And just the last point of life FOMO, no one's living a better or easier life than you. Again, even if they are, what does that matter to you? So again, if it doesn't matter, then that you assume the best or whatever. You assume the default, and the default is that no one is doing that. To be able to enjoy your life more, you have to be more present, or just present enough to experience it. The presence aspect gives no room for FOMO. hence why we're trying to eradicate it. And the biggest time saver is letting go of the idea that you could be living any other reality. So if you're constantly thinking that there's a parallel universe where you have something that you don't have, or, you know, just like that those universes exist, which I've spent a lot of time thinking and kind of like romanticizing and considering, but actually that, again, distracts you from living and being loyal to your life. Again, if you believe in that, like the parallel universe or multiverse theory, there's a lot of, you know, interesting things of like how you can quantum jump or whatever, how you can, you know, like do one crazy thing and then, you know, you're going in a whole new direction. And I think those are cool things, but I just think that if the multiverse theory is true, you don't need to constantly believe it or measure yourself based on the other potential universes to be able to use the perks of the multiverse theory, if that makes sense. So essentially, if you commit to your life and just accept that this is the only reality that exists, all of a sudden you're more committed, but the truth of the matter stays the same. If you committed to your life, take a risk that has a high reward potential, it will still change the course or the trajectory of your life. You just don't have to mentally constantly imagine what your life would have been or could be like if you did or didn't do a certain thing. So just thinking less about the parallel universes and being more, or not even more, just like entirely loyal to yours, is how you can get all those things that you want and that FOMO is highlighting your want of. So if you want to have a life that's better or easier or whatever, if you want to have more fun, if you want to have the coolest projects imaginable, all of those things, this is the answer. Being super committed, super loyal to the reality that you have at hand. And my conclusion, I guess, with all of this was that FOMO is like a jail that keeps you from enjoying your life or work or whatever else. And if you can't get out of it today, no matter how hard you work, no matter what you change in your life, you will still be in it 20 years from now. Hence the importance of actually battling it and all of that. Yeah, this was a bit more of a wordy episode. Also because I didn't have any specific visuals to add to this. But you can always find my visuals and my references in the link down in the description. It's on Arena, on my channel called Video Essays. And then in the notes that you can also find linked below, you have the more refs little area, which again, I haven't always fully read or fully looked into, but these are things that sort of I left here for myself to dive into if I'm interested or if I ever want to revisit this again in more depth. So yeah, hopefully you took some notes. Hopefully this was useful in some way. I think it definitely has been unlocking things to me in my brain. So hopefully you find the same value of it, I guess. And as always, I'll see you next week. Bye bye.